Welcome to the Livestream of Consciousness. The Livestream of Consciousness is on a quest to unravel the mysteries of existence. Every episode, we ask the fundamental question, what is consciousness? Is consciousness merely a product of our brains, or does it connect us to something greater? Explore the very fabric of our thoughts. Don't miss a moment. Expand your awareness and tap into the boundless potential that resides within you. Welcome to the live stream of consciousness.
Yes, welcome to the live stream of consciousness. It's so interesting. I'm thinking about, as I always listen to the intro and Jesse's voice and the energy that comes with it. He's very prolific with his words, and I'm so honored that he did my intro. But he talks about a quest. He's like, we're on a quest. And you know what? I've been thinking about that, and it's not really a quest. It's just kind of like a way of existing. Like the idea of happiness being a quest. Happiness isn't a destination. It's a way of being. And so I think the whole idea of what is consciousness and the conversations that I have here are not because I'm on a quest. I think it's just, I just enjoy the conversations, and I enjoy being in that moment of thought and deliberation. I don't know if that's the right word, but anyway, happy Thanksgiving. It is Thanksgiving night. I normally would probably have not done a show, but I figured it's 9:00 at night after the day's events. Usually Thanksgiving dinner is early and things are finished up by then. I'm probably normally passed out at this point, but I took a nap instead, and I knew I had to wake up and do the show. It's Thursday, November 28th. We have collectively agreed to that. I love that also. I've recently been saying that, like, when I say the date, it's not like what is the relevance of it. It's just a collective agreement of how to refer to the moment. And we're in the moment. I thank everybody who is here. I see a couple of numbers out there. I don't know who's here. Say hello in the comments. Give me a hashtag live if you're watching live. If you're watching the replay, that's okay too. Give me a hashtag replay, just so the algorithm sees that there's people watching and I can grow this show. I love having conversations with my fellow humans from the collective and just kind of talking about their perspective and adding all of the perspectives to this library I have called the Livestream of Consciousness. So thank you for being here. And I see Barry out there. What's up, Barry? Welcome to the Livestream of Consciousness. It's good to see you out there. Anyway, I'm excited tonight because lately I've had the opportunity to experience some of the modalities of the guests that I have. So a couple of weeks ago, I had Barry on the show, who's watching, and Barry is a practitioner who helps people with rapé and kambo and some other things. And he offered to show me a rapé ceremony, and we did. And it was really awesome to experience. It was awesome to then be able to talk to him after the fact. So through that experience, I got to meet his wife, Melissa, who is a Gestalt Pastoral Care Minister. I have to always make sure I say that right, which was something I had not really heard of. And I was like, oh, what's that? We got into the conversation. It's like, hey, why don't you try it? So I actually was able to have a nice session with Melissa and experience Gestalt Pastoral Care, and we'll be able to talk about it tonight. And I'm super excited. What's up, Janice? I see you out there. Super excited to talk about it with her tonight. So again, happy Thanksgiving. Welcome to the moment. Thank you for being here, and also welcome to the live stream of consciousness, Melissa Boyer. How you doing, Melissa?
Hey.
Hey. Good to see you again.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah, we had an awesome session. I really, really appreciated it, and I'm excited to talk about at least what I felt like I got from the session, and we've even talked about working together further. So there must have been something there to entice me into going further with it. So I'm excited about that. But welcome to the show. and get ready for the little couple of questions I have for you. I don't know if you've prepared. Some people come to the show and they've never seen it before. Some people see the show and they're like, oh my God, I got to come up with an answer to this question. So either way, I always say that there's no wrong answer to this question. It's one of my favorites to ask and to open up conversations. And that question is, what is consciousness? What are we talking about when we talk about consciousness?
Okay. Well, I don't know, man. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how to define it. It's beyond words. So I'll come at it.
Okay.
Yeah. A few weeks ago, I baptized a baby, tiny baby, really new on the planet, and really little. And I'm holding this infant in my arms, and I'm saying the words. And it's in a church, Sunday morning worship service. I'm saying the words. I pour the water on his head. And this is something else about consciousness too, how you can be saying something and then you have 10,000 different thoughts happening, at the speed of light at the same time. So as I'm saying the words, I'm looking at him and I'm thinking, he has no idea what's happening. He doesn't understand English yet. He doesn't know what any of this means. He doesn't know who I am. And yet we were looking each other deeply in the eyes. He was just staring up at me. I was staring down at him. And there was this beautiful moment of understanding. There was a soul to soul communication happening that was beyond the liturgies and the doctrines of the church in which this event was happening.
I love that.
And what's cool is there were a few people afterwards, either that day or a few days later, who said, something happened when you baptized that baby. Like I felt it. There was something that happened. And I don't know, is he an old soul? And so he was, communicating something to me. I don't know. But when you ask what is consciousness, that's a story that comes to mind.
I love that so much. And I felt that as you were describing that. Let me ask you, I'm imagining, I don't think I said that you were a minister at the United Methodist Church in Babylon. So I'm imagining you baptize babies often.
Pretty often. Yeah.
Do you always experience that kind of moment, or is this kind of something special?
This was singular. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I have a lot of baptism stories, and most of them are humorous.
Okay.
But this was there was something unique about this.
I love that. That's awesome. Yeah. But what's interesting to me now is because as you were saying that, I was thinking, oh, well, she must experience this all the time, because the Gestalt Pastoral Care that we went and we're going to talk about, a big part of that is being aware of the moment, right?
Yes.
And that's kind of what you described to me, is like as you were baptizing this baby and you guys exchanged, you're looking at each other, right? And communicating, right, somehow through that moment. Yes. I'm like, oh, so I'm just imagining you experience that all the time because of what you practice. But
I suppose there are degrees of it. So there is something, baptizing a baby it's an important moment. It's so it's like a hinge moment when what comes before is different from what comes afterwards. It's a rite of passage. So every time I do a baptism, I am really aware of the importance of the moment, the sacredness of the moment, the weightiness of the moment. There is that, but this was just this communication back and forth that was different from anything that I had felt before.
Well, okay, so you were saying that normally a baby's unaware, right? Completely unaware of what's going on, who you are, and all that. So do you feel like that was it, that there was this awareness of this person is welcoming me to this community, like this moment is significant right now that's happening in my life, like for this soul, this new soul?
Yeah, or old soul. I feel like he was
soul, right?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, I just felt like, oh, things,
Oh, maybe it was like, hey,
Can't-
I'm back.
yeah. I don't know. It was awesome, and it's something I'll remember forever.
That's
It's
awesome.
something I'll keep coming back to.
That's awesome. I love that. I love that story. That's really great. And it kind of reminded me, and it makes me think of some questions I have for you later on after this next question. But just talking about being a minister in a church, and then kind of some of these other beliefs of spirit and soul that and how they work together.
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of want to talk about that, but before I do, just through meeting you, uh, I feel like there's this kind of, and the word spiritual is loose. It's such a loose word, right? Language is so
Overused
interesting.
word too.
But again, the idea, I think that we met under the idea that we both believe in other realms outside of the physical three-dimensional realm that we exist in.
Yeah.
So my question is usually that I ask, and to kind of lead us to where you're at in your path of what took you to where you are, is if there's a moment that you remember, a story that you have that you realized that there was more to existence than the sun comes up, I wake up, I gotta go do my chores and and get through the day.
Yeah. Well, there are a couple of ways to answer that, and at least a couple of stories. And one is actually kind of the inverse of the question that you're asking,
Okay.
because I'm remembering when I realized as a really young child that you're supposed to pretend like the three-dimensional world is all there is, at least in polite company. And if you don't want people to think you're weird, that you're supposed to pretend like that, just this physical 3D that we can observe with the five senses is all there is. And that, I think back to the imaginary friends that I had. I had 3 of them, and their names were Woolly Bear, Grassy, and Pumpkin Go-Go Shell. And
Wow.
yeah, and my memories of them, they are so real. I inhabit the childhood memories of those imaginary friends, and they're just real. I can't in this mind, this adult brain now, I cannot tell the difference between
Right.
memories of my imaginary friends and memories of my siblings.
That's so cool.
And
And the names are so organic. I feel like they're so friendly and organic. They're almost like characters, in a Pixar film or something.
they'd be great characters in a movie because they were beautiful too. I mean, if I like to make art, but I'm really not good at representing something accurately with art.
Right.
If I could, they would be really pretty visually stunning.
That sounds cool. We're gonna have to talk about that after the show because just I have my thoughts in my head. We'll talk about that after the show.
Okay.
I'd love to help you do that. That would be something really really interesting to I feel like you have very specific visual memories.
I do. And when you ask that question, I go back to the moment that I realized, oh, the adults and my older siblings who are almost adults, they don't see them. They don't see my friends, and they don't have their own friends. And I realized, like, oh, this makes me different. And when you're really, really little, it's kind of scary to be different because there's safety and belonging, right?
Yeah.
So I look back. I have a hunch that all of us have some moments like that in our growing up years when we take in the message that we're not supposed to experience anything beyond what can be your science.
Yes, absolutely. I try not to get into the idea of like conspiracy theories and all of this like conditioning and all of that stuff, but we talked a little bit about that, and I do agree with you that there's a part of the way people are kind of growing up, and that things that we're taught that kind of separate you from the idea that that's even acceptable. And it's really interesting that you're telling me to answer my question is not like when you realized things weren't what they seem, but like, oh, I've got to pretend that things are as they seem. That's a really, that's really an interesting spin on it. And it really makes sense. And again, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but, relates to the conversation that we had when we had our session, and the download that I had. I think I've mentioned it on the show, that reality is actually in imagination, in the imagination realm, in the realm of thought, which is a whole other conversation, and
Yes.
maybe we'll get there. Maybe we'll get there. We only have an hour, so sometimes the conversations go all over the place. But that's amazing. So, okay, so you've always had a different perspective. You've always realized that these other aspects to existence that weren't physical had a significance to them. How did that lead you to the church?
Yeah. I didn't grow up going to church, but I grew up in a family that I would describe as spiritual. I think that a sense of connection to the holy through nature was really encouraged when I was growing up, and I was encouraged to ask questions and think for myself. Mm-hmm. And I happened to start going to Catholic school when I was in 6th grade. Mm-hmm. And there's so many ways to answer this question, so I'll try to keep it succinct. But I started to get involved in the Catholic Youth Organization, the CYO. And that was, for me, it was like being in an environment where you could talk about faith. You were expected to. There was something that was nice about that. And now, just saying that now in the context of the story that I told you earlier about realizing that, I'm not supposed to acknowledge that there's anything beyond the 3D. I think there was something that felt right about being in an environment where we could talk about faith. Now, the doctrines of the church, I had and still had a lot of disagreement with, a lot of issues with, but that it was the setting of the CYO that actually helped me to identify some kind of calling to ministry. I couldn't put it into those words yet. And obviously I'm the wrong gender to be a priest, and I didn't want to be a nun. And, but I did feel like I had, this calling to communicate to people, to try to inspire people through communication, to help people connect to the spiritual world, and to do that in different ways, through my speech, through facilitating in group settings, through facilitating one-on-one, being what I describe now as kind of a spiritual midwife. There were settings, even when I was a teenager, when I got to do that, and it felt really right, and it felt really good. So that sparked this calling that I then figured out. It led me into the Methodist Church later on in my young adulthood. But that's a different story. Yeah.
You know what? This is great. I'm really excited about this conversation because I relate to it, and I just want to say hello to Connor out there. I see Connor saying hello. I relate to this story, okay? And it's very interesting to me because I was born into a Jewish family, and I went to Hebrew school, and I was bar mitzvahed. I was asked at that point, hey, or I was given the choice, hey, if you want to continue these religious studies, feel free. If you don't, that's your choice. And I was not. There were a lot of things. I mean, I think it was probably partially my age and that, but there were things about organized religion in general that
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like. Um, and so I was like, no, this isn't for me, you know. Um, and then growing up, I wasn't like anti-religion or anything like that. It just wasn't for me.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't my connection. And then as I got older, I realized that I was struggling with two words in particular that are, I guess, relevant to this whole conversation, and that is God
Mm-hmm.
and faith. Those two
Mm-hmm.
words I was struggling with because of how strongly they were connected to and defined by organized religion.
Yes. Yes.
And it took me a while to kind of forge my own relationships and understandings of these words, to where I'm at now, where I kind of see it all as the same thing. And we were talking about this as well in our session, as far as like any connection to source, right? Any connection
Mm-hmm.
to your higher power. That's another way to say it. God, the universe, source. People use source. The holy.
Yeah.
You said the holy. I loved that you said that too, because that was one thing I noticed in our session as well, that there was no religious overtone or mention of Christ, which again can be just another word, another metaphor for certain ideas, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And 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 I think the problem I had with the word God was the personification of it.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and so so the way I was able to kind of make peace with it was, whenever I heard the word, I was like, and in my head I started to substitute it with the word universe, because to me
Mm.
God was the universe. God was
Mm-hmm.
everything.
Mm-hmm.
um, and that helped me understand that when people were saying it, it was just their way of understanding that. um, and again, you say the word God and immediately people think of a man and a
Being.
beard and all of these
Yes.
visions, and that was what I struggled with. And now I can say the word God and I can understand that it means source, that it means, my favorite actual saying, when it comes to religion, is God is love and Jesus is love. I love
Mm-hmm.
those sayings because that makes so much sense to me. That's like that makes so much sense. It's like depersonifies the concept into a bigger a bigger concept,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. I have God is love on my business cards, actually. But I went through a similar process, Michael, where I had to just realize for myself, okay, God is shorthand. God is shorthand. That
Mhm.
if you ask yourself the question, why is there anything instead of nothing? Like why is there something?
Mhm.
And God is a tiny, tiny human, puny little word to try to capture that, the all that is the universe.
Very often we are limited by language, right?
We
This
sure are, and it and
and
then
I've had,
it shapes how we think too. It
yeah.
shapes how we think,
Right.
and
And I've had this conversation that language, it's like we think language is, oh my God, this amazing thing because it allows us to communicate, but it's also like a bit of a limiting
it
thing, I
it
find.
is it
Yeah.
is like the conversation I had with that baby boy. That was a great conversation.
Oh wow. What
And it happened like that, and no words were exchanged, but wow, it was a beautiful conversation.
what a great response to what I just said, Melissa. Oh my God. Like language, like that's it. There was some sort of language there, but it was an
Mhm.
energetic language. It wasn't a
Yes.
physical manifestation of any sort of language,
Yes.
which is awesome. So again, I'm fascinated with the idea of that you are a minister at a church, but just through our conversations, again, I feel that you're very aware of your use of language, right?
Mhm.
And and I don't know if it's just me, and I'm imagining that I was actually watching some of the videos from your church, from your YouTube channel. I want to talk about that too. I'm imagining it's different as you address, it depends who you're addressing, right? When you're addressing
Yeah.
your congregation, there's probably much more religious overtones or mention of religious moments and concepts, whereas when
Yes.
we were having our session, It was more like a therapy session, and it was, the language was just so much more, so comfortable for me, and I think very specific. I think, again, I think as we spoke, I was like, oh my God, I would say a word and I'd be like, wait a second, I didn't mean to say that word, because words have so much power and energy to them.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a moment that you said, I want you to repeat after me, and I didn't repeat it the same way that you had said it, because of that. I think that because of my own mindset and my own belief systems, I took what you said in, and I was supposed to say it back out, and I had to process it through my own perception. But what was cool about our session, and I want to talk about this about therapy, and this is why I think I was interested, is because I was able to get that feedback from you about, you see what you just did. And it's not that I necessarily wouldn't notice that, because again, I'm pretty careful with my language when I say stuff, and I notice what I'm saying often. But you helped me realize that, and even address it in the moment. I was able to address it because it wasn't accurate. What I was saying wasn't accurate to what my beliefs were, right? And specifically, if you remember, you had asked me to say that I was actively pursuing what my purpose is, or what my meaning was, right? The meaning of my own gifts and my own connection. And I didn't say it that way.
You didn't. Yeah, I remember.
And when you had me question that, and you probably remember this as well, I said, I am actively pursuing it. I'm here, right? Why would I be here if I wasn't actively pursuing that? And that was just such a great moment for me. You know what I mean? It was just like, yeah, man, admit it to yourself. You are. Like, why would you question the fact that you are? You know what? And say, oh, I think I said I would love to know what my purpose is. Not like I'm not. I was removing myself from the active participation in what I was actually doing.
Yeah. It was. I remember that, and it really was. It was really nice to see you reclaiming your agency just in that moment, by noticing the difference between how the words came out initially, and then we caught it, and then you realized, oh yes, I do have agency in this.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that. That was just an amazing moment, and that's how powerful it was. So let me back up now
Right.
to what got us to or what got you to that, right? So I know, again, just from knowing you and being around you and engaging with you, that you have this purpose of service, right? And being in service to your fellow man,
Yes.
your fellow human.
Fellow human.
Yeah. And that's really obvious and evident when I'm around, when somebody's around you. But how did you get there? Like, again, I kind of want to know, like, you're a minister at this church, but you also administer this care. And I'm just trying to wrap my head around it. So
yeah
take me there.
Okay. So I was going through the ordination process. This would have been 2004, and part of the process was we had to do a lot of things. And one of the things that we did was to go on a retreat that was led by a brilliant woman named Tilda Norberg, who describes herself not as the founder of Gestalt Pastoral Care, but as the finder of Gestalt Pastoral Care. Okay. And she is the one who, she trained as a Gestalt therapist, and she also is a United Methodist minister. One of the first female clergy to be ordained in the New York Conference of the United Methodist Church, one of the early ones. She was leading this retreat, introducing those of us who were going through the ordination process to Gestalt Pastoral Care. We call it GPC for short, so I'm going to call it GPC.
Okay.
All right. During this retreat, I was at a really, really difficult time in my life. I had two very, very young kids. My husband at the time, my first husband, this is my first marriage, was really imploding, and kind of dragging us with him. It was really, really difficult, and I just was not sure how to keep going. I knew I was going to be raising the two kids on my own, and also learning how to be a pastor, and I was in a new town where I didn't have a support system at all. And I think I was really ripe and ready to be introduced to this healing modality, because I needed healing and support myself.
Mm-hmm.
And it was on this retreat that I actually had one of those experiences. When you ask me, when did you realize that there's more to the world than the three-dimensional world? I can think of some cool stories, but one of them happened on this retreat. And she demonstrated GPC to us. And after a lot of demonstrations and discussion about it, she had us divide into groups and practice with each other. So I was in a group. I volunteered to be the person who was doing the work, and someone else guided me. Mm-hmm. And I, quickly went into a pretty deep place of feeling really vulnerable and feeling like, what the fuck? What am I? How am I going to do this? I do not have the strength, the ability to keep going here. And I heard the words of the 23rd Psalm just start coming out of my mouth. The Lord is my shepherd; I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. And then when I got to the part that says, you anoint my cup, you anoint my, hold on a second, I have to do it in order to get to it. You prepared a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. And as I said that part, you anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows, I just had this image. It was like it was happening in the physical plane and in the spiritual energetic plane at the same time. Mm-hmm. And on the spiritual energetic plane, it was just like oil, this like absurd amount of oil just being poured over me and just splashing off of me. It was a message of abundance. There's enough time, there's enough energy. You are enough. You are enough. You're gonna be able to do this. Wow. And it was exactly what I needed. It's exactly what I needed. And as that was happening, as I was seeing the oil and just seeing it splash off of me, I was hearing the sounds of it too. I was like, oh, it just sounds like it's raining outside. Like it's amazing. And then afterwards we were talking about it, and everyone in the group said, yeah, it started raining right when that happened. Like right when you said, you anoint my head with oil, like it started raining. And we told the rest of the group about that. Like, yeah, how it started raining right when that happened. Mm-hmm. And there were people who were in other areas of the retreat center. Like someone else had gone for a walk down by the river, and he said, it didn't rain. Like I was outside the whole time. And wow. It didn't rain. But everyone who was in the group with me saw the rain coming down.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. So that was one of those experiences that it's hard to explain. Sure. And it was just hearing the rain and feeling the oil. It planted a seed in me that sprouted pretty quickly. After that experience, I knew I need to learn more about this GPC stuff.
Right.
This is really powerful. Right. So I did the training. And it took me a long time to complete the training, because I was at the same time finishing the ordination process, becoming a pastor, working as a pastor, raising my two kids, all of that stuff. So I just kind of very slowly went through the training and completed my internship. Actually, just last year, 2023 is when I is when I completed the internship. I have, however, just done GPC work. I've been doing it all this time.
Gotcha.
Just
Right.
being clear with people that I'm still in training.
Gotcha. Well, I was kind of really interested in this because I had heard the word Gestalt before.
Mm-hmm.
My understanding of it was kind of more like I think it was you're always shown kind of like an image of a flock of birds and the shape that it makes, and the idea of the whole being the sum of its parts, but different than the sum of its parts. It's more than the sum of its parts, kind of that. And then when you when I asked you about it, you said it was all about kind of being in the moment, being in the now moment, being aware of the now moment. And I think it was kind of, I guess a combination of that. I guess my question is this. So part of what I experienced was just kind of a series of questions, right? And part of I think I mentioned to you that I took an Akashic Records class, and there was a psychic surgery exercise that was very similar to, kind of having you read a sentence, and when you skip on a word or have a problem with a word, you ask the questions related to that word.
Yes.
And actually, I don't think I discussed this with you, but one of those questions, or one of those series of questions, and I think you asked this to me, was if there was a specific feeling that was happening at a moment, was there a size or a shape or a color associated with that feeling?
Yes.
And those questions were part of the exercise that I was doing. So it was very, very kind of very similar exercise. And I've always been a fan of therapy, and I understand the idea of talking about things and asking questions to invoke a response. But that was very interesting to me, right? Like to try to define a feeling or an emotion with a size, a weight, a color, some sort of physical property, I guess you could call it.
Yes.
What's the significance of that?
Yeah, a couple of things. One is GPC really gives credence to body, mind, spirit. That they're all connected, and so it's very much about getting into your body, trusting the wisdom of the body, getting out of your head. Avoiding just getting stuck in talking about something. Talking about something in the past or something in the future. This is my grand cat, Mamba.
Hello, kitty. What's up? I love kitty cats.
She's so sweet. So
welcome to the live stream of consciousness.
She is. She could teach us a lot about consciousness, I'm sure.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. But there's a great trust in the wisdom of the body. So GPC is really about making space for awareness and trusting that whatever is presenting itself in your physical body is what needs to come forth in this moment for healing. So it's not thinking your way to it. It's experiencing your way to it. And those questions of, does it have a texture? Does it have a size, a color? Are ways to, it's really all about deepening your awareness. Is if you could say, like if I ask someone, what are you aware of right now? And they might say, I just have a heaviness in my chest. And then that's when I could say, well, could you describe that heaviness? Does it have a temperature? Does it have a color? And if it's something that, there's a difference between saying it's cold and it's heavy versus it's warm and it's buzzy. Like what those are two very different kinds of energy. And then what you can do with GPC is even say, well, if maybe someone describes that as an anchor in their chest or something. If that anchor could speak, I wonder what it would say. And then if you say, I'm heavy, I'm cold, I'm dark. That can really open up some awareness that you might not have, you probably wouldn't have been able to get to by just kind of talking about.
Sure. Yeah. No, that's interesting. And so
Yeah.
let me. And now what I'm thinking about as you're saying this, I'm imagining that there's not a specific, like, it's very personal. Everybody's perception is very personal. So if someone says, "Oh, it's cold and it's heavy," that may not mean the same thing that it means to you, who's actually, listening, right?
Absolutely.
So I think more what I'm getting from this is the idea of making you think about it, right? And kind of in your head, like you asked me to close my eyes, and it is a better way to kind of focus, right, on what you're saying. You can close your eyes, you can think about it. You're starting to focus on what you're saying. So thinking about, I don't want to use the word personifying, but I guess I could use the word personifying this emotion or this feeling, right, with these traits. There's no book of like, oh, if it's cold and heavy, that means this person is experiencing this, because it's a personal expression, right? A personal.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Very interesting. Wow.
And that's, and the other thing with GPC is it's Gestalt Pastoral Care. So it is, it did come out of the Christian tradition, but it's not it's a non-sectarian modality, and it's grown, beyond Christianity, and so there are practitioners of GPC, from different religious traditions, and there's even an offshoot called Gestalt Soul Care, which I kind of like. I kind of like that better than Gestalt Pastoral Care, because it's a little more open. But I'm in
friendlier, non-secular, right.
Yeah. But what I was saying is that Gestalt Pastoral Care does use spirituality in different ways, depending on what the person is bringing. And we will use, whatever language, whatever metaphors, whatever imagery resonates with the person on any given day. And what resonates with someone one week might not resonate with them, another week. And if someone, I think of someone who was so stuck on a male God, just because of, really deep hurt with father figures.
Sure.
And seeing her shift from talking about God, because that word God just automatically meant a male person. She just couldn't get past the language. But something simple like, she was a former Catholic, so something simple like, would you be willing to invite Mary, the mother of Jesus, Mary, into your awareness, into your consciousness right now? And that just completely opened things up for this person.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I think so again, I'm kind of processing this as I speak to you, because we did have an experience and I'm able to do this. I love that about this kind of new thing with the show. Excuse me. But what I really felt was significant about the experience was, and I think this is relevant for a spiritual practice as well as a therapeutic practice, is that it felt very evident to me that I was doing the work, and I don't even want to put it that way, because it didn't feel like I was doing the work, but what it felt like was that what was coming from me.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like it was definitely like you were there to kind of guide and ask specific questions, but kind of with the knowledge of whatever I was talking about, what kind of question would lead me to focus on that? What's the feeling associated with it? And what does that feeling mean to me? Again, without you kind of saying, oh, well, it means this or it means that. You were just kind of like having me focus on it and identify it, and then come up with it and actually say, oh, wait a second, I get what's happening. This is what's happening. And this is why I'm feeling this way. And this is that self-affirmation that I'm having blockage on, is not taking accountability for the work that I am doing, for specifically at what our experience was. But again, I think that's very empowering, I think, for anybody on a spiritual journey or on a therapeutic journey, right? Like I don't even feel like I don't feel like I'm on either one of those, right? I guess if anything, I love talking about this stuff. So I would say spiritual journey, but not necessarily looking for healing, right? Not feeling like, oh my God, I'm so hurt, I need to be healed. Like I feel pretty grounded. That was one of the things we talked about. I feel like I can deal with situations. Not everything in life is going to be amazing, and I feel like I feel very blessed that I don't get affected as much as I see most people do, right? Like I see a lot of people dealing with situations very emotionally, and there's a lot of range, right, happening, where I feel like for me, like I can get through situations, just by breathing through it and, like just being calm or whatever.
Yes.
And I kind of lost my train of thought, but where was I going with that?
Well, could I just respond to what you said? As you were talking about how you felt like you were doing the work, and it's true. In GPC, we call the person the worker, or the person doing the work, rather than saying a client or a patient or something like that, because there really is a belief that we all have this deep wisdom. And we all have this capacity to heal, or to achieve homeostasis, right? That it's just a matter of clearing the things that are in the way,
right,
out of the way.
And I think even more specifically, we all have the deep wisdom about our own journey, right? That we think that we need to find out. It's in there. And we know it, but I guess that's part of the journey, is realizing that it's in there and that we have it. And it's like, once you can connect to it, life is brilliant.
It's like we've got this light, and it just gets all covered up. And so we need to clean off the stuff that's covering it up.
Yeah, totally. And I think Thanksgiving is significant. If we were talking earlier about how I just don't like holidays, but Thanksgiving is one that I do like, because it does kind of make people, the thing I like about it is when you're sitting at the table and it's like you got to go around and everybody's got to say what they're thankful for. Right. I think that to me reminds me of a meditation, right? Or a guided meditation, or like, just an awareness exercise of saying, okay, you know what, I got to get off the hamster wheel for a second, stop thinking about what's next, what I've got to do, and I've got to be in the moment, and I've got to reflect on my own life, and I got to say, wait, what is good in my life? Which I think is an important exercise. So I'm going to go back, because this thought just sparked in my head, and I started to say this. This was why I mentioned the two Indian folks. Is because of that moment, like of that awareness and of that gratitude, for like, okay, I'm in this moment, I'm breathing, I'm alive, I don't know, just Courtney Lopez saying Hallmark holidays. I don't think she was here when I was talking about that. But and Connor is saying, oh, I missed this one. Connor says GPC sounds like a guided tour to the source in a personal manner.
Dang.
Yeah,
Well put. Well put.
I like that. Every day we wake up, it's a good day when you wake up. I think so. Connor is talking about something that's very important and has been very prominent in my vision and in my vortex lately, and that is, again, how unique everybody's journey is. And that's really what the show is about, right? Just giving space to people like you who have a very specific way of experiencing Earth and giving and receiving your energy to others, and just letting everybody else know, hey, here's one way. And maybe people who are struggling to figure out what their way is, will be helped by saying, hey, maybe I can go talk to Melissa, or, oh, that sounds like something I could do, You know what I mean? Like being inspired by what you do and saying, wait a second, you know, that's a job. You know what I mean? Like actually
Yes.
helping people, you know, focus on the moment. You know, it's interesting too, because I mentioned, oh, let me pop this up. This is the website for the church that you're at, babylonumc.org. I went and I was just kind of doing a little research, just like kind of get myself comfortable and get myself in your energy. And I love that you go live with your sermons on Sundays. You have a YouTube channel. And I was watching you give your sermon. And again, even though I don't have that connection with organized religion. So the very formal outfit that you're wearing and the presentation of it it's kind of, that's not my vibe, right? But my vibe is definitely the communication part of it and the idea of the community part of it. I love just watching everybody there just kind of really engaged with what you were saying and listening to you telling the story. It reminded me of, very oddly, I taught Photoshop for a couple of years at SUNY Farmingdale. I started at the Art League of Long Island, and I can remember the first time I was teaching. I was very, very nervous. It was a very small class, I think 4 or 6 people, you know, who were signed up with the Art League to learn Photoshop. This is like almost 20 years ago. And I was there because that's what I did. I loved Photoshop. I knew how to do it. It was my thing. And all I did was I showed up. I did kind of plan certain things that I wanted to talk about, basic concepts, but all I was doing was talking about something I loved. And the response was everybody was just so excited that I was talking about, so they were like, oh my God, you know so much. And I'm like, wait a second, what do you mean? This is just what I do. And it just made me realize in that moment, you know, like how special everybody is, how unique they are. Everybody has something to give. And also just like when you are in that moment and you're authentically talking about something that you do and you love, it comes across. That energy is authentic. That energy is important. That energy is a part of that bigger picture. You know, and that was just such a great, I remember that moment very clearly. And I can remember my experiences teaching over the years. I don't do it often, but I love teaching. And so anyway, I'm going off on a million tangents here. So watching you, I was like, wow, I feel like I could do that, but it wouldn't be in the same setting, right? It wouldn't be a church. It would be some sort of other setting where it's just kind of like, I don't know. I feel like it's just like a kind of like navigating human existence class or something.
Yes.
Because a lot of people struggle with that. You know, a lot of people, you know, have the mindset that it's a battle and it's tough. And I'm not saying in any way that it's not, or it can't feel that way. But, you know, just kind of being able to give the message to make it easier for people, you know, to survive the day.
Definitely. And you know, I think that used to be built into how we lived as human beings until, you know, probably pretty recently, but we don't, just the way we're structured now, we don't have, you know, elders and wise teachers who are in our lives on a daily basis, but we still need that. So I think people are looking for that in all kinds of different ways. And, you know, I understand not looking to organize religion for it. Because, you know, as I said before, I definitely have had my own issues with organized religion. So it's kind of interesting that like, this is my, you know, it's my calling, and it's also my job, you know, that setting happens to be in, you know, the institution of,
but you know what, but it's, I feel like, you know, I feel like you're in the right place. You know what I mean? I feel like your energy and it's not like you're not authentic with the part of God that you're trying to present to everybody, and your connection with God and what you believe about God. I think so let's just bring the focus back to the GPC, because that's really what is special about you, what I enjoyed, what I want to kind of present to my other people, to my other people, to my audience, people who may not know about it.
Yeah.
And again, I am definitely, you know, we've already talked about it. I'm definitely going to be working with you again and taking it further, because it was really probably the first time I felt like I was actively a part of doing this work. And it didn't, and again, it didn't feel like work. It felt like,
Mhm.
uh, it didn't feel like fun, right? Because I was kind of very emotional. I got very emotional, but
Yeah.
it felt right. I guess that's the best way to describe it. Like, I felt like
Yes.
I'm supposed to be here doing this, feeling this emotion right now, um, because it's going to take me to the next place.
Yeah, and that goes back to what you were saying too about authenticity. You know, we just when we have a space where we can just be authentic and be in this moment and feel what we're feeling and express that in any way we can, it does feel right. And you're right, it's work, but it's not work, and it's,
Right.
you know, not fun necessarily, but it's something that you really want to do, that you really
I feel like this show is kind of that for me. Like, this is my
yeah.
moment to, like, just, you know, be that authentic and focus on what is happening in the moment, which is usually a guest and what they do. So it's easy for me
Yes.
to, you know, kind of play with that.
Yeah,
I-
yeah.
I-
Well, it's kind of a flow state that you're in when you host this. I would think, you know, that you're like
yeah,
challenged just the right amount, you know,
yeah.
so that you're really just focused on the moment, and it feels
That's
good to be able to
That's a
focus.
good way to put it. That's definitely a good way to put it.
Yeah.
This is like, this does feel like playing music to me. Like, there is a
Hmm.
similarity of, you know, okay, go live, and here we go. And I've said many times to my audience, like, I never expected to be an on-screen personality. I was always doing this for other people, producing shows, and, you know, I'm a camera guy and I'm always behind the scenes. But when, you know, fate brought me onto it, there was a connection, there was an energy about it. So
Hmm.
I appreciate you taking the time to be here on Thanksgiving. You're a
Yeah.
pleasure to talk to. I'm looking forward to working more with you in the future, just on myself personally. Um,
I look forward to
and
it.
and I always say this, but I do feel like we just barely scratched the surface. So maybe we'll have you back again and talk some more.
I'd love to come back. Yeah, I feel the same way. There's so much more about GPC, and it's one of those, it's kind of ironic that you have to experience it, you know, to really understand it. You can't really talk, you can talk about it, but you don't really get it, I think, until you've done it yourself, or you've seen someone do it.
Yeah, and I definitely recommend it. I did it this week. I'm going to be doing it again. I want to acknowledge Debbie out there. I didn't say hello to Debbie Ontiveros. Welcome. I appreciate you coming. Angelo, you came in a little bit late. I'm going to say welcome. Happy Thanksgiving to you. Watch the replay, because we do talk about where GCP originated and how.
Yes.
But but yeah, you've been amazing. So do you have any words of love, advice, Thanksgiving for my audience before we say goodbye?
I will. Angela, was it Angela who asked about where GPC originated?
Angelo, yeah, he wanted to know
Yeah.
where it originated and how.
If you just look up Gestalt Pastoral Care, I think the website is gestaltpastoralcare.org, but it does give some information about the history of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think your question, what is consciousness? I told you the only way to answer that is to tell it slant, and I told you that story. But there's also a quote. It's one of my favorite quotes. It's from Teilhard de Chardin, and maybe someone on your show has used it before. But we're not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so
I love that, and I definitely subscribe to that philosophy. We talked about it, and I think I've mentioned it, that download that I've had recently about existence. The reality of it is in a different realm, and this physical thing is just kind of something we create from that realm. We create this idea that we're having this physical experience, but you know,
yeah.
we talked about Donald Hoffman. People like Donald Hoffman say that's not really even the case. It's not. He talks about the goggles, like this is goggles that we're wearing,
or the desktop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, you are awesome to talk to. Again, I'm looking
So are
forward
you.
to seeing you more. Arnie says peace and love to you all.
Peace
Happy
and love.
Thanksgiving to everybody. Thank you for joining us. If you were here live, if you're watching the replay, thank you for joining the replay. If you enjoy conversations like this, please come back, share, subscribe. It's really easy. What I found lately is I watch a lot of these podcasts, and it's just so easy, one, to click subscribe so that you get to come back, but also to share it. When you see someone's live and you think there's somebody else that might enjoy it, hit share, and it just pops up on your timeline, and it helps everybody. Helps raise the vibration for the planet. Connor's out there saying have a great night. Again, you have a great night too, Melissa. And
Thank you.
Next week, let me just see. I usually tell what I'm having next week. I don't actually have anything scheduled for next week, so it's going to be a surprise. I do have a couple of cool shows coming up. I do have a couple of cool announcements. December 1st, which is Sunday, Long Island, locally, I am going to be doing a live broadcast from a wellness and psychic expo at the Holiday Inn in Plainview. So a live stream of consciousness. I'll have some of the people who are practitioners that are there coming and stopping by my booth and giving me a little interview. So I'm excited for that. And then in a couple of weeks, I have actually Sandy Hackett, who is the son of comedian Buddy Hackett. I met him from Jackie the Joke Man's podcast, Stand Up Memories. He was just such an amazing guy with such great stories, and we hit it off. And I said, "Hey, I do this show." He was like, "I totally want to do it." So I'm going to have him on in a couple of weeks as well.
So cool.
Yeah, very, very cool. I get to talk to very cool people. So have a great night, everybody. I love you guys for being here, and I will talk to you soon. Peace.
Thank you. I loved that.